Hello, we're continuing our series on Latin American history through literature, through classic novels from the 19th and 20th century of Latin America. And today we're going to visit Haiti and Cuba around the time of the Haitian Revolution. So let us jump right into it. Okay, that's not the screen I wanted. Let me see. Here we go. Almost. There we go. So, Alejo Carpentier was a Cuban writer, probably the best Cuban writer of all time, the most well known. He lived in the middle part of the 20th century. He wrote his novel, The Kingdom of This World, in 1949 in Spanish, and then later it was translated into English in 1957. It's a work of historical fiction. That is, it's based on actual historical events, and at least two or three actual historical characters, and it has a couple of fictional characters. And so he weaves in fiction with history to tell a story better than he can tell it if it was straight up history, because it allows some degree of interpretation. Um, so this tells the story of Haiti before, during, and after the Haitian Revolution, led by Toussaint Louverture, who I hope you've seen the 1 hour documentary last week, PBS documentary on Toussaint Louverture and the Haitian Revolution. And we view the Haitian Revolution through the eyes of a central character named T. Noel, which he serves as the novel's connecting thread all the way through the story. He's a black African slave, and the story takes place over about a 50 or 60-year period, covering most of his life. Beginning with about 30 or 40 years before the actual Haitian Revolution, with a slave insurrection led by Macandal, who was an actual historical figure, all the way through the Kingdom of Haiti under King Henry Christoph in the early part of the 19th century. So Carpentier's work has been influenced by his multicultural experience. He was fluent in French and as well as Spanish. He grew up in Cuba, but he spent a great deal of time in France, and he also made several visits to Haiti. The novel stems. I'm sorry, I jumped over a paragraph. Carpentier's work has been influenced. Carpentier's work has been influenced by his multicultural experience and passion for the arts. He was quite a erudite figure and wrote a number of essays on the arts and literature. He considered himself a musicologist, so he was very familiar with Cuban music. He studied authors like Miguel de Cervantes. The novel stems from the author's desire to retrace the roots and the history of the New World, and is embedded in what Carpentier calls lo real maravilloso, or the marvelous real. It's not exactly the same thing as magical realism, but you could consider it a precursor of magical realism. Just to give you some geographical perspective, there's a picture of Cuba and Haiti. Haiti is on the western side of the island of La Española, the first island settled by the Spanish under Christopher Columbus with the arrival of the Spaniards. On the eastern side of the island is the Dominican Republic, which is the Spanish side, going back to 1502, I believe, or the 1500 with the arrival of the Spaniards. The Haitian side is French-speaking officially, but also has a language called Haitian Creole, which is a mixture of French and African languages. You see their relative location there, relative to Mexico and the United States, right in the heart of the Caribbean. Here's another map representation. You see that Cuba and Haiti are very, very close to one another. And this is why, as we get into this, if I don't remember to mention it later, I'll mention it now. At one point in the book, T. Noel's owner, a French planter who owns a sugar plantation, in the light of the death of his wife and the terrible events of the Haitian Revolution, flees the island of Haiti, or the country of Haiti, and takes a boat across to the eastern side of Cuba. That's where the Guantanamo prison is located. He lands in Santiago de Cuba, again on the eastern side, and attempts to start his business there over. Many, many French planters fled from Haiti under the threat of slave violence and moved their sugar operations to Cuba. It was around this time that Cuba took off in its own sugar industry. Now that Haiti, or Saint-Domingue, as it was known under the French, was no longer a competitor. You see, it's also not far from Jamaica. On to the east is Puerto Rico, St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay, for the historical context, this is set right in the middle of the French Revolution, which was around 1790, 1791. The French revolutionaries challenged the idea of monarchy based on divine right. They even went as far as executing the French king and queen, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, of the famous "Let them eat cake" statement. These revolutionaries took inspiration from the intellectual awakening called the Enlightenment. They proclaimed liberty, equality, and fraternity, questioned traditional authority, and remade the political order. They sneered at idiot kings who, thanks to their royal bloodlines, possessed powers that they did not deserve. Instead, the revolutionaries argued for popular sovereignty, meaning that the people of each nation, not yet including women, unfortunately, had the right to determine who would rule them according to a written constitution. French revolutionaries set out to overthrow other European kings and establish republics. Very quickly, Napoleon arose through the ranks and became the dictator. One of the significant facts of the French Revolution is that they made a declaration against the institution of slavery, even though their most profitable colony, Saint-Domingue, was extremely wealthy and raking in a large amount of wealth for France through the sugar plantations on the western half of La Hispaniola. And so the French revolutionaries came out against slavery. The slaves and the mulattoes, or people of color, in Haiti, which was at that point, it was still not called Haiti, it was called Saint-Domingue. They heard about these attempts towards abolishing slavery, and they rose up and turned against their French owners, the gens de couleur, the colored people, literally, people who were brown or a mixture of French and African. A lot of them were free. They were no longer slaves. They had earned or won their freedom. That was one group. There was the white French colonists. There was the mulattoes, or the gens de couleur, and then there was the African slaves who were full Africans, and in some cases they were also mulattoes if the father had been a plantation owner who fathered children with the slave women. The French Revolution sparked the Haitian Revolution, much as it did about 20 years later under Napoleon when he invaded Spain and Portugal. It sparked the wars of independence in Spain. And here's a picture, a well-known picture of a group of slaves stringing up French colonists and plantation owners in the insurrection against the French. And here's a picture of the Haitian Revolution. On the left, you see the Haitian army fighting against the French. And I believe that is probably Toussaint Louverture on the white horse there. And here's another picture, an artist's rendering of the Haitian Revolution, with the Haitian army fighting against the French. I might pause to mention here that over a 20 or 25-year period, Haiti, the ex-slaves of Haiti who rose up and was the first successful slave revolution in all of history. They were successfully invaded by the French, and then the British and the Spanish and the British again and the French. They fought off 3 world empires in order to preserve their independence. It's actually a very remarkable story. The Haitian Revolution. Haiti acquired a favorable reputation within the Americas due to its revolution. Haiti actually played an instrumental role in helping Simon Bolivar and encouraging him, giving him money and weapons to fight for the wars of independence against Spain. So Haiti, in the very beginning, was looked up to as a early example of revolution against Europe. Alejo Carpentier's novel about Haiti, The Kingdom of This World, deals with the Haitian Revolution using the idea of the marvelous real. The title, The Kingdom of This World, comes from a statement of Jesus Christ when he was being interrogated by, I just slipped and forgot the name of the Roman centurion, the Roman ruler who was interviewing or interrogating Christ. But Christ said, "My kingdom is not of this world," indicating the heavenly kingdom. Carpentier is setting up an opposition to that, talking about the kingdom of this world. In other words, the pain, the tragedy, the suffering that we have to face in this world prior to any afterlife. The post-revolutionary Haiti had a difficult beginning. Following the independence of 1804, that represents about 12 or 13 years of fighting to get their independence from the beginnings in 1791 to 1804. It was initially led by Toussaint Louverture, who was eventually betrayed by the French and arrested and taken back to France. And then the revolutionary leadership fell upon his lieutenant, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who had suffered quite a bit more than Toussaint Louverture, and a lot more brutality, that is, and he himself was a much more brutal leader than Toussaint Louverture. He eventually went from being general to calling himself emperor, but he was assassinated in 1806. After his assassination, Haiti was divided into a kingdom in the north, led by Henry Christoph, who coronated himself as king of Haiti, and that sets up Carpentier's book. And there was a republic in the southwest under André Pétion, which was a mulatto republic. In other words, these were people who were not slaves at the time of the Haitian Revolution, but they were people of color, mixed between the French and the Africans. Henry Christophe, on the other hand, ruled the Kingdom of Haiti in the north, which was composed of former slaves and black Africans. This sets up a ongoing controversy in Haiti that lasts well into the 20th century and maybe even to the 21st, between what's called noirism in French, which is black consciousness, versus I can't remember the other name, versus a mentality of mulattoes, or light-skinned people. When I say light-skinned, I don't mean white, but I mean light-skinned people of color. And these two groups vie for power in Haiti over the years. The Kingdom of This World was published 15 years after the occupation of U.S. Marines that lasted from 1915, I believe, until 1934, and 3 years following Haiti's second major upheaval, the Revolution of 1946, which was a student uprising in Haiti, sparked by the U.S.'s efforts to lighten the Haitian government through mulatto leadership. That is, they favored the leadership of Haiti going to mulattoes, light-skinned mulattoes, rather than darker-skinned Haitians. That's kind of messed up. Haiti's post-revolutionary political instability was compounded by the economic. Hold on a second. I'm missing something here. Oh well. Was compounded by the economic uncertainty. In 1804, Haiti did not have a workforce that was willing to return to the plantation labor, nor did it have the means to protect its treasury from the enormous sums that France was demanding for its official recognition of Haiti as a nation. Today, it would approximately be $3 billion that France wanted Haiti to pay. Haiti was dependent upon a global market driven by colonial exploitation, in other words, the sugar trade. It could not protect itself from the economic stranglehold in which France and much of the West had placed it. A lot of people ask, why is Haiti so poor, and why is it had continual problems? One of the answers to that question is the punitive attitude that the United States and France and much of Europe took against Haiti. They resented the idea of a successful slave revolution, and there was racism undoubtedly, and they did everything they could to strangle the Republic of Haiti from the beginning. Carpentier faced a conundrum that is Haiti. He visited Haiti. He was impressed with Haiti. He was amazed by some of the uh, marvelous real that he encountered, some of the attitudes of supernaturalism in Haiti. Haiti revealed the advent of Caribbean modernity with its revolution, and it was admired initially by most of the Americas as a vanguard of revolution. But Haiti's absence of material progress within the nation countered that narrative of it being a successful revolution. And so Carpentier had to negotiate that balance in his book. I just wanted to mention here in passing that there was also a U.S. occupation. This is jumping ahead. Actually, it's jumping up to the time that Carpentier visited Haiti and wrote the book, even though his book is set back in the 1780s and 90s and early 1800s. But in 1915, the U.S. sent Marines into Haiti, and they ended up staying for 15 years. This was catalyzed by the mob killing of the president of Haiti. Um, I believe, let me see if I have his name here. President Villebrun Guillaume Sam was killed by insurgents who were angered by his political murders of elite opposition. So the U.S. Marines sent in the United States sent in the U.S. Marines to take control in Haiti, landing at Port-au-Prince, Haiti, on the authority of U.S. President Woodrow Wilson. Wilson was quite an active guy. He also invaded Mexico to try to capture Pancho Villa around the same time as the Mexican Revolution was going on. And of course, then he sent troops to Europe in World War I. By the way, Woodrow Wilson was a unapologetic racist, even though he was considered to be a liberal president. The occupation ended in August 1934 after President Franklin D. Roosevelt affirmed a disengagement agreement. Roosevelt initiated a new policy towards his neighbors, the U.S. neighbors, called the Good Neighbor Policy, and he was attempting to avoid interfering in the internal affairs of neighboring nations, to his credit. The last contingent of Marines departed in August 1934 under a formal transfer of authority to the Garde d'Haïti. That's the Haitian Civil Guard, or the Guardia Civil, as they were known in Nicaragua under the dictator Somoza. The U.S. also invaded Nicaragua for 15 years. It was in the Dominican Republic. Everywhere the United States sent an occupying force from 1915 through the 1930s. They tried to build up a civil guard, a Guardia Civil, to take over the police responsibilities of the U.S. Marines. In every one of those cases, the National Guard, as they would be called in English, or the Guardia Civil, or the Garde d'Haïti, in every single case, they became an oppressive force and a tool for a rising dictator to dominate the country. I think it also happened in the Dominican Republic. American racism, racist attitudes to the Haitian people by the American occupation forces were blatant and widespread. Reading some of the uh, literature, some of the written journals and letters of American servicemen who were occupying Cuba in 1900 or Haiti in 1915 is actually appalling. The amount of blatant racism that took place. It almost makes you grateful for political correctness today, because we have toned down that kind of thing, even though people still have the similar attitudes in many cases. Racist attitudes toward the Haitian people by the American occupation forces was blatant. Initially, there was an intermingling of officers and elites at social gatherings and clubs, but when the families of the American forces began arriving, such gatherings were minimized. Relations degraded rapidly after the departure of officers for World War I. In other words, the higher officers left to go to war in Europe, and they left junior officers and enlisted men in charge. The Haitian elite found the American junior and non-commissioned officers to be ignorant and uneducated. There were numerous reports of remaining Marines drinking to excess, fighting, and sexually assaulting women. The situation was so bad that Marine General John A. Lejeune, based in Washington, D.C., banned the sale of alcohol to any military personnel. There's a picture of the National Guard, or the Garde d'Haïti, that was formed during the occupation of the Marines in Haiti, who later became an oppressive force. So some of the major themes in the Kingdom of This World. Carpentier explores themes of hybridization, in other places known as transculturation, the exchange between different cultures, white French culture with black African culture, coming together to create combinations or hybrids in terms of religion, music, even people. Other themes include nature. Voodoo is a big theme of his book. Ethnicity, history and destiny, confusion, violence is a huge theme, and sexuality in a style that blends history with fiction and uses repetition to emphasize the cyclical nature of events. That's an important stylistic aspect of the book, is it comes across, it feels cyclical. It also feels somewhat eternal and sacred, and I'll explain that later. The Kingdom of This World has been described as an important work in the development of the genre of magical realism in Caribbean and Latin American literature. Even though The Kingdom of This World is not considered to be a magical realist book, it contains some of the elements which Carpentier calls the real marvelous, or lo real maravilloso. Here's a picture of Boukman, who was one of the characters in the book. He was the heir of Macandal about 30 years later. He was a voodoo priest. And by the way, Macandal and Boukman were probably both Muslims. Muslim slaves were called mandingos, and they were considered to be very stubborn and very resistant, and to have strong leadership skills. And they often were at the forefront of leading insurrections against either the Spanish or the French colonial powers. So Boukman was the one who actually initiated the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. The mythology, whether it's true or not, is that they killed a pig as a sacrifice in a voodoo ceremony, and then they, on a prearranged signal, they spread out and began to attack their owners in the plantations, and killing without mercy. A great historical book on this is C.L.R. James, which is called The Black Jacobins. James was a Trinidad and Tobagan author and historian, and he wrote about Haiti, and it's considered to be a classic historical work about Haiti. And he shows very clearly how the brutality of the French and the way they treated their slaves generated a corresponding reaction and brutality among the slaves when they finally rose up. Here's some Haitian folk art. This is in Haitian art style, showing the Haitian Revolution. So some of the major themes. What is El Reino de este Mundo really about? Most of the readings recognize that the El Reino de este Mundo does not aim to present a full account of the Haitian Revolution. And that's one of the advantages of novels and fiction in dealing with history, is that it has the freedom to be more interpretive instead of recording painstaking details in a linear account. In its famous prologue, it is even suggested that Haiti and its history are just pretexts for the presentation of predominantly philosophical and aesthetic issues, such as the linkage between the real and the marvelous. When it says its famous prologue, in the first edition, 1949, of El Reino de este Mundo, Carpentier wrote a prologue called Lo Real Maravilloso in America, the marvelous real in America, and it's actually become a very famous essay that has even been read and discussed more than the book itself. And we're going to read that probably. I think we might be reading it this week, and we'll discuss it next week. But in it, it contains some of the seminal ideas of the marvelous real in America, and some of the, in seed form, some of the things that will blossom into magical realism. The kingdom of this world has a deep focus on the nature of revolution versus reaction. And the novel itself can be viewed as a reflection of Carpentier's ideological perspective towards revolutions. Remember, Carpentier was Cuban. He lived in Cuba during the time of the Cuban Revolution, and he was a strong supporter of the Cuban Revolution. I hope that doesn't ruin him as an author for you. If you're living here in Miami, it might. There is a lot of people with strong feelings about the Cuban Revolution, pro and con. But Carpentier was in favor of a revolution that would benefit the poor. He saw the Cuban Revolution as a progressive revolution. But what this slide is saying is that he feared that the Haitian Revolution, in the end, was a reaction. It was a explosive and raging reaction against years and years of abuse and brutality by the French and the whites toward the African slaves. And his concern is that a reaction does not advance progress. Only a revolution does. That's I'm not going to try to get into the theory of revolutions. There's a lot written about it. But he felt like a revolution produces progress, a reaction does not. Here's another picture of the reaction of slaves beating the children and the wives and the planters after their own children and wives and their own selves had been brutalized, killed, tortured by the white owners. So that was reactive. Carpentier's style is complex. There's been a lot written about his stylistic approach. He has an omniscient narrator that follows the eyes of the masters. Suddenly, the narrator could be a witness in a crowd and then an embodied figure. Then he might see through the eyes of the slaves and enter into their subjectivity. And in another moment, the narrator could be following Macandal as he turns into a bird or a fly and flies away. So it's an omniscient narrator. There's also an element of the holy or the sacred in this book. And when I say holy or sacred, I'm not talking about Orthodox Christianity, but I'm referring to a theory, a religious studies theory by Rudolf Otto, who wrote a book called on the numinous, or the holy. He's the one that came up with the idea that religion is motivated by a sense of fear and mystery and fascination. He calls it mysterium tremendum and fascinans in Latin. And basically, the holy is something that is utterly other and entirely apart from normal everyday existence, and it inspires mystery and a double reaction of attraction and the desiring to flee at the same time, which he calls tremendum and fascinans. It's like you're watching a horror movie and you don't want to watch, but you can't look away. That's the kind of feeling. And there is a lot of this feeling that's interspersed throughout the book, the kingdom of this world, particularly in one chapter near the end. It is thus not surprising with its aim of evoking the holy. The fourth and last part of Reino de este Mundo is dedicated to the concept of fear. This fear is the stupor before the numinous described by Otto. The numinous is something that comes from old Latin farmers. The Romans were very superstitious, and the numinous is that thing when you're walking past a cemetery and you get the feeling that someone's watching you, and you feel like you can sense movement out of the corner of your eyes. That's numinous. It's kind of there, but it's not quite there. And you go to look, and as soon as you look and focus, it's not there. But you feel it, or you sense it, or you see it in your peripheral vision. That's numinous. A numinous experience is an experience that you have that you cannot be explained through normal or rational explanation. The flow of time is another stylistic element in this book. The idea of time is experienced as static and cyclical. It produces a feeling of eternity. You'll notice that many of the chapters in the books are standalone chapters, and in some cases years go by between one chapter and the next, and there's no transition. And what this does is it gives a feeling of looking at a series of snapshots over a lifetime, all at the same time. It's like you can see T. Noel as a young man, a young slave. You see him as a middle-aged slave. You see him during the Revolution. You see him being taken by his owner to Cuba and living in Cuba. Then you see him again when his master dies and he returns to Haiti. But you see all of this as simultaneous shots, or frozen in time. And so this is a deliberate strategy by Carpentier to create a sense of eternity, or time standing still, or time being meaningless in a sense. The movement between the tragic and the comic is a way to prompt the reader into critical self-reflection concerning what is believable. And I mentioned earlier Carpentier's prologue, which is called The Marvelous Real in America. It was the prologue of the first edition in 1949. I hope you'll have a chance to read it. One person observed in 1971, up to a point, the prologue has become better known than the text of the work itself. The prologue is kind of a philosophical reflection or musing. Scholars further point out that the prologue to El Reino de este Mundo has frequently been considered apart from the work in which it appears. So it's almost a standalone. Characters in the kingdom of this world. There's T. Noel, who's the main character. He's a slave working on the sugar plantation of Monsieur Lenormand de Mézy. He serves as a narrative thread which ties the entire book together. I think there's only one chapter that he doesn't appear in. He also represents the everyday Haitian man, or the ordinary mind, to a certain extent. So we see the events in the book through his eyes as a Haitian slave. Macandel was a historical figure based on the actual historical figure who lived about 30 years before the Haitian Revolution. He was a runaway slave and an Ungan voodoo priest, rumored to be charismed by the great Lois. That is on page 51 of The Kingdom of This World. That means he was like a witch doctor, or a priest, like a voodoo priest. I don't have that in here, but he also probably was. There's some discussion that he might have been a Muslim, at least in his background. Most Muslims were literate, and of course they could read and write Arabic, and they had some military training. When I say Muslims, I mean Muslim slaves. A lot of slaves that were taken from Western Africa were Muslims. He was rumored to possess lycanthropic powers by the slaves of Saint Dominique. That's a quote from on the Marvelous Real in America. Lycanthropic powers is the ability to change oneself into an animal. You might have heard the word in relationship to werewolves, but a shaman of many of these religions or priests and voodoo were often considered to be able to transform themselves into birds or animals and to be able to go about and travel unperceived that way. I have a story about being in Guatemala in a Indian village, in the Mayan Indian village in the heart of Guatemala, and around a lake, and we were told there was a raven watching us when we arrived, and someone told us that it was the local witch doctor who was curious to see what we were doing there. We had a Aztec pastor, Christian pastor with us from Mexico, who affirmed it and said, yeah, that's probably true. So there's some crazy things, and for modern Westerners, we might have trouble believing some of these things. But this is the interesting thing that Carpentier does. He weaves the worldview of the Haitian slaves and who adhered to voodoo and superstitions. He weaves their worldview in with the historical narrative without making a judgment of which one is true. So you're left wondering, you're left with the choice to take a European Enlightenment view of events or to take a Haitian view of events. So Macandel flees from his slavery and spends time traveling around Haiti or preparing people for a revolution. He metamorphoses himself into birds, insects, and beasts in a deliberate effort to create a nation of emancipated Negroes. Carpentier relies on Macandel more so than other characters to reveal Haiti's marvelous reality in the light of his direct relation to the Loas. The Loas are the African gods and spirits. Mademoiselle Floridor is another character. She marries Monsieur Leomond de Mazy after his first wife dies. This is in the chapter The Daughter of Minos and Pasiphae. She is a mediocre Flemish actress. There's some humor around this part and about her and her relationship to Monsieur de Mazy. She's the comic centerpiece of the chapter as one whose artistic ability extends only to the phallic arts. There's the humor. Mademoiselle Floridor's dramatic endeavors are seeped in absurdity. When the insurrection breaks out, she was raped by T. Noel. And there may be some symbolic significance to that you may extract from it. Solomon was another slave. He was the personal servant of Pauline Bonaparte, the younger sister of Napoleon, who accompanies her husband, the admiral, to Haiti to try to put down the insurrection. Solomon is her manservant and slave, and he's also a masseuse, and he's frequently giving her massages. And he has a prominent role in the first segment of the fourth part of the book, La Noche de las Estatuas, the Night of the Statues, which sets up a tone of dread and astonishment. That's a picture of King Henry Christoph on the left. King Henry Christoph is the Haitian leader who takes over the north after the death of Dessalines. He anoints himself king and undertakes to finish building the Citadelle LaFayette and the Palace Sans Souci. You can go visit both of these today. They're there in Haiti, actual locations. You can visit them. He undertakes to finish the building of these two locations through the reintroduction of forced labor to create the famed fortress. There's a whole chapter where T. Noel is found and forced to join into the labor parties and to carry bricks up the mountain in order to build this fortress, which is a wonder of the world, basically, the way it's built. Carpentier then recounts the uprising led by the Republican South. Remember, that's led by mulattoes, lighter-skinned Haitians against Christophe, who on unifying the nation institutes obligatory farming, and he reestablishes slavery in a new form, which, as you might imagine, makes him somewhat unpopular. With each depiction of strife and exploitation, he purposefully reveals that the newly emancipated experienced freedom as an endless return of chains, rebirth of shackles, and the proliferation of suffering. So there's a certain tragic pall that rests over this novel. Somewhat pessimistic and probably realistic, actually, from my point of view. He plainly shows then that as ongoing victims of autocratic rule, Haitian peasants experience freedom as a horrifying return to forced labor. The kingdom of this world basically is a very dark place, which I think is true. It's tragic as the history it relates is seeped in unnecessary suffering and an enduring inequity. This is a picture of the fortress that he built. T. Noel had to make many trips up the mountain carrying stones to be part of the building project. Here's another more breathtaking picture of La Fortress LaFayette. Republican mulattoes and lycanthropy, I think it's probably pronounced. With the arrival of the Republican mulattoes in Chapter 3, Los Agrimensores, T. Noel's idyll ends under a new regimentation imposed by mulattoes. When it refers to his idyll, he's been living in the collapsing mansion of his former owner and basically scavenging for food and for clothes and enjoying himself, basically living a free life for the first time in his life with no one to tell him what to do. But then come the Republican mulattoes from the South after the death of Henry Christoph. Then T. Noel rebels and in his delirium evokes, as if he had been a saint, King Henry Christoph, whose word had become stone and no longer lived among us, and whose amputated finger lay like a relic in Rome. He remembers Macandel's power of lycanthropy and proceeds to transform himself successfully into a bird, a horse, a wasp, an ant, and finally at the beginning of Chapter 4, Agnus Dei, he transforms himself into a goose and tries to make friends with a group of geese. There's probably another word for a group of geese, but I don't know what it is. All of these disguises only manage to produce disillusionment in T. Noel, as he understands that unlike Macandel's metamorphoses done to serve mankind, his own had merely been attempts to run away from the lands of men. This recognition brings about a moment when, honoring his name, which in Creole means Little Christmas, T. Noel experiences his epiphany. His whole life seems to come together in a single instant of a flash of insight, a supreme instant of lucidity. And you see there on the left, on the far right there, on the left, you see to the east is Santo Domingo, which is a Spanish country. On the upper part on the west is the Kingdom of Haiti, which was ruled by Henry Christoph and is the setting for our book. And in the south was the Republic of Haiti, led by the mulattoes, or the people, lighter-skinned leaders of Haiti. T. Noel's epiphany, and we quote from the book on page 151, he lived in the space of a heartbeat, the most important moments of his life. He again saw the heroes who had revealed the strength and abundance of his far-off ancestors in Africa, making him believe in the possible germinations of the future. He felt countless centuries old. A cosmic tiredness, as of a planet burdened with stones, fell upon his shoulders, wasted by so many blows, labors, and rebellions. T. Noel had spent his inheritance, and in spite of reaching the ultimate misery, he returned what he had received. He was a body of time-worn flesh. There's something called a peak experience by Abraham Maslow, or limit experiences in one of the readings that we'll be reading. It's also called a numinous experience in religious science, a numinous moment. It's a moment of stillness, a moment of revelation, a moment of oneness, a feeling of oneness with the universe, where time seems to come to a complete stop, and you feel like you, at one moment, are part of the universe or part of God. I've experienced it. My wife and I have experienced it together. I interpreted it as a moment of entering into the kingdom of God. But it exists in a lot of other religions and even among secular psychology, known as peak experiences. And apparently this is what T. Noel has in this moment. He has a peak experience, a numinous moment, a moment of revelation when all of time comes to a stop and he can see his entire life and as a series of events all at once. In fact, he sees the centuries, and he comes to this moment of fatigue, of the constant reoccurring of suffering and pain and tragedy in human life. It's kind of Buddhist, actually. That was a similar experience that Buddha had in his revelation under the Bodhi tree. So, this is the book El Reino de este Mundo, The Kingdom of This World by Alejo Carpentier, the greatest Cuban writer, writing about Cuba's neighbor Haiti. And I hope you enjoy this reading. And we will continue again next week. Thank you very much.